Did you go 135 Pereira?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Goes, how about you, man? You've had some time to react since the watch along. Again, I maybe I'm being harsh, man, but I expect a lot from this guy. Let's not forget about the 3 fights in 6 months. He had 5 fights in 16 months. A lot of travel, this guy. A lot of travel, a little personal drama. It just looked like a guy that's worn down. I'm not sure about the age, but maybe just, like I say, being everywhere, and not being hunkered down for a proper camp.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we had those answers, right? It's not the fight that we all expected, because there was so much writing on it, and because of Alex Pereira's footprint in the sport, it did keep my interest the whole fight. But when you see the way it played out, I mean, a lot of people had trouble ordering this pay-per-view, right? So George and I, we were eyes and ears for a lot of people trying on the watch along, explaining what was going on. And I think a lot of people probably tuned in and thought we were trolling them because we're literally giving them the information that Pereira's stuffing takedowns, yet he is not winning this fight. It was very, very odd the way it played out. And I think what made it even stranger was kind of like the fire that Pereira had after the fight and how it affected him. He seemed really angry, really pissed off, really frustrated. Going into the fight, walking out, nothing looked any different. He had his normal walkout. It's just the 25 minutes in between where he was another person. He was very, very flat, lackluster, just didn't really do the things that we know him to do. And sometimes I think when it comes to fighters, especially dominant fighters, I don't know that they realize as great as the fighter is on the other side of them, there is a little part of them that goes, holy crap, that's Alex Pereira. He's knocked people out really bad before. He didn't use any of that to his advantage. And I just felt like that fight was one of those fights, Danny, you were talking about how you scored it for Pereira, George and I, and Mike, we did Ankalaev. But I looked around at a lot of people and they did look at that fight kind of differently. It's one of those where I'm sure a lot of us are looking at it. We're doing our work that night. You have to go back and you have to watch it and just watch it as a fan. It's completely different. I did that last night. But this is definitely not the fight that we expected, man. It kind of took the wind out of our sails.
Were you 3-2 Pereira or sorry, Ankalaev or 4-1?
The night of, I was leaning more towards 4-1. 4-1
Yeah.
felt right.
Yeah.
Watching it again, though, it's kind of weird. You can make those arguments. It was maybe a little bit closer than I thought it was.
I think the one thing that did get me hyped that night towards the end was there was a thought that it could be 2-2 from some scores that were flashing. And I thought, okay, well, maybe whoever wins this round wins the fight. And it was such a flat round that I was like, come on, guys, doesn't somebody want this? Doesn't somebody want to change their life or what? Danny, I don't know, this happens a lot, man. Someone thinks you're tripping. And shows Jubilee's gas station says anyone who thinks Pereira won that fight needs to reread the scoring criteria if you've ever read them, then rewatch the fight without sound. So I know there's a few of those. You want to explain maybe why you scored it for Alex Pereira?
A couple things. I don't get the whole idea of like, I think rewatching the fight in order to like analyze it and bring insight and stuff like that is important, but like it's also a bit irrelevant because the judges don't get to rewatch it. The judges don't get to watch it without sound. They're there witnessing live. So whatever you saw live, that's what you're basing the fight on. That's what you're judging. So, anyways, I don't think Ankalaev, apart from what was it, round 2 where he kind of rocked Pereira, was it? Towards the end, apart from that round, he didn't really do much. And then when he closed the distance, he failed on a ton of takedowns. I don't even think he took Pereira down even once. The best he got was pull him up against the fence. And even then, he didn't really land any like big knees or elbows or anything like that. And on the feet, yeah, he connected some decent shots, but so did Pereira. Pereira had tons of leg kicks on him, probably doubled them. I don't know what the stats are. And although that leg was a little, beat up, his base was still fine. So I guess, it's hard to put a lot of stock into that since it didn't cost technically a lot of damage, but still, I just thought it was a close fight. And I think if you judge on like damage on who connected more, I think Pereira in 3 of those rounds did that. Now, again, it's a very close fight. I don't have a problem with Ankalaev leaving as the winner. And I think if you tell me, 48-47 the other way, that's fine. Even at 49-46, as we saw on one scorecard, I think that's fine. Like, you can see the fight and you can make an argument for that and back it up with what happened in the fight. It was a very, very close fight, in my opinion. because there was so little that was done and not much was definitive. We only have one definitive punch, which was on the second round. So I have a hard time seeing how people are just saying that Alex Pereira got destroyed, got washed, that it was a dominant performance from Ankalaev. I've seen those comments, and I think it has to do with some hate for Pereira. Some people love to see some people kind of be down and all that. So I'm not really sure what's going on, but go look at the fight. It was a close fight. Again, I don't have a problem with Ankalaev winning. In totality, I do think he had the better performance of the night. But to say that this was a washout and that it's clear for Ankalaev, I completely disagree.
You know what,
All right.
Danny? I think what happens is when you look at a guy like Pereira and how dominant he's been, you look at other sports, and when LeBron James has a poor night, for some reason we just snowball, we get all over him. And I think it's because he's been so dominant that when he's not, it's like 10 times worse. I think that's why people are looking at it that way.
Yeah, I think so too, right? Like, Ankalaev was supposed to go in there and get knocked out, right? And he didn't. And he actually had the best shot of the night. So there's definitely part of that. And I think we've seen that before when like really dominant champions, say like a Demetrius Johnson or a John Jones, has a close fight. It looks a lot worse than it should, because people just expect them to like go in there and completely destroy. But I'll watch it again. I haven't seen it on a second time, but I thought it was a close fight.
If you have any comments or questions, the best ones get on the show. Here's a couple key clips. In the chat room says, lost $900 on Alex. Never will I bet again until UFC 317, LOL. Says he was there. Good event, he's saying, though. Overall, Wreck the Soul says, no Shama now. Shama hype is done. Alex is overrated. Holy cow, he's going in hard on him. Manu says the Paul Craig legacy is getting even better. And Dave Hughes with MMA Weekly says, I had it 3-2 Alex. Mike Bond, let me ask you this. Did Ankalaev win the title, or did Pereira fight poorly? Because it sounds like they're going to reheat this bad boy and give it to us again. So let's start getting fired up for the next one whenever it goes down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're giving nearly enough credit to Magomed Ankalaev here for this performance. I think he kept the pressure on. He made Alex Pereira uncomfortable fighting off the back foot, which he doesn't have to do that often. And I think it was a lot of what he offered, even just as I said earlier, the mere possibility and threat of the takedown can change a fighter completely. And I think you saw that hesitancy in Alex Pereira here. So I think a lot of what happened here was the product of what Ankalaev was doing. Could Alex have taken more risks? All those kind of things? Sure. But I think Ankalaev definitely had a lot to do with that. And as I said, Alex Pereira landed 11 significant head strikes over the course of 25 minutes. That's just not going to get it done. The leg kicks were fine, but he just needed to do more in this fight. And I think maybe he swings one of those rounds in his favor, and you see it be and still instead of and new here. So I think you got to give more credit to the game plan of Ankalaev. And I think in a rematch, definitely going to be more interesting on both sides. I think Ankalaev will be much more confident in knowing what he can do. They felt the power, the strength, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll see, Ankalaev has been good in rematches in his UFC career as well with Ion Kutlaba and Johnny Walker. Obviously, Alex Pereira is neither of those guys, and he's much better. But I'm very curious to see how a rematch looks and what adjustments both guys make, because I don't think this was the best of what they both had to offer, but I do still think there was some important takeaways from this fight.
Goes, like I mentioned, Dana White is open to running it back. Do you agree or disagree with Dana White?
It depends. There's so many times where you have to look at the sport from a business standpoint, from fan standpoint. If Alex Pereira wants the rematch, I don't know how you don't give it to him. The guy's done a lot of favors for the company. He was a dominant champ. I say you do run it back. I like the fire that he had at the end. That, to me, like Mike pointed out, I do feel like there are things that can be done on both sides that would make this fight more of an interesting fight the second time around. But as a business, if you're the UFC, you need to figure out, you really need to sit down and talk to this guy and find out if this was a bad night or if this is a case of somebody getting his number. If it's a case of somebody getting his number, 3-4 months, that's not going to change that. He needs more time. So it just depends on how you look at it. But if it were me, I think I'd run it back.